Almost all of them say they're more productive working remotely. We've got a good rhythm going, and I'd hate to ruin that. I can tell you right now, 3 of my engineers would walk out the door if they had to start coming in, said Rosa, always the blunt one of the group. Each of her managers had a different response to the remote work conundrum. And that's when Claire realized that she needed to trust each of her managers to decide when their employees needed to be in the office and when they could work from home, recognizing that this would vary from department to department. All these actions caused employees at Claire's firm to feel loyal to their managers and to stay at the company. As a result, attrition wasn't as much of an issue when the Great Resignation took hold. Good word of mouth and positive reviews on sites like Glassdoor kept the applications coming. Then the economic downturn arrived. At first, Claire was afraid she would need to lay off some of her employees. But with the help of her managers, she was able to redeploy workers in the hardest hit areas to departments where demand was still high. Yes, her company took a financial hit, but it wasn't nearly as pronounced as the one Van experienced. When Van started his company, he had not had a middle management layer at all. As the company grew, he realized that if he didn't have managers, the company would descend into chaos. But most of his managers came from the front line without any training in people management. And so when COVID-19 came on the scene, they were ill-prepared for the rapid-fire problems it presented. Then, when the downturn hit, Van had so many fires to put out that he didn't have time to thoughtfully redeploy his workers, and his managers weren't trained to do that work. So Van simply whacked from the bottom to cut costs. That's when he started to realize that better-trained middle managers would have been a huge advantage. Claire's managers did have that advantage because of the investment she made in middle managers several years earlier. The mishandling of managers. A cost-cutting opportunity. That's the way many organizations have viewed their middle managers over the past 30 years. And now they're paying the price. That's why the 3 of us, management consultants at McKinsey, decided to write this book. And we do see the irony in that. Because over the last several decades, consulting companies focused on efficiency and shareholder value for their clients, often encouraged the very perception that middle managers were a source of high cost and low value. One of us, Bill, spent the early parts of his career focused on reducing costs and achieving efficiencies for his clients. Reducing middle managers was one of the means of measuring and improving shareholder value. But as Bill continued to work with global companies, he saw countless real-world examples of middle managers having a significant, positive impact on their organizations, and he began to wonder how many other types of value, not quite so easy to measure, were lost because of mathematically focused cost-cutting measures. For Bryan, a crystallizing moment occurred when he learned of a survey that found that more than 40% of workers said no one at their organization had asked them how they were doing during the pandemic. This was clearly a middle manager's job, and the fact that it wasn't being done signaled how severely this role had been depleted. In working with their clients and in researching the future of work over the last several years, Bill, Bryan, and Emily have seen over and over that the very management layer that has been so severely beaten down is now absolutely vital to achieving organizational success. And most leaders still don't realize that. Like Van, the CEO of the tech firm, they react on the fly to one crisis after the next without realizing that these sudden changes, whatever form they may take, are never going to stop. In order to respond to them both quickly and thoughtfully, we need a strong layer of people managers. As the very definition and meaning of work undergoes seismic changes, our current organizational structures are simply not built to adapt to them. We argue that organizations need to pivot not from the top or from the bottom, but from the middle in order to thrive. We wrote this book to puncture the persistent negative stereotypes that surround middle management. We want to encourage organizations to adopt a new mindset and a new model that puts middle managers at the very center of changes in work, the workforce, and the workplace. Right now, the very term middle manager is freighted with negativity, connoting, as it does, a 20th century idea of bureaucracy and make work within a strict organizational hierarchy. Who actually self-identifies as a middle manager anymore?